There is blood in your web, Theseus. Wipe it out. By Spooky Serpent. Chapter 7. Notes. More bonding and some discussions. Trigger warnings. Mention of brainwashing, weaponry, injury, brief mention of child death, past abuse, mention of past suicide attempts, and swearing. Phil doesn't know how Quackity was able to build an almost like model of the Eiffel Tower in his casino, but he was certainly not going to judge him. Leaning over the railing, hands linked in front of him, he looked over at the pool shaped like France and muffles a snort. Wings flicks out behind him. As much as he loves his sons and would do anything for them, sometimes he's proud of himself for trusting in Quackity. The man certainly has taste. By his shoulder, Techno stands, pink hair braid at his side, tied into a ponytail. His boar skull covers his face, and his hands rest on the pommel of his sword. It's unnecessary here. They can show themselves, but they both might be a little on edge. Heels sound from the staircase, and Phil instantly straightens as Captain Puffy appears, tricorn hat atop her white head. At her side, Trigger lingers, his gas mask covering the bottom of his face, green hair slicked back. Phil, she greets to his own plague mask. Puffy, he replies, taking note of the way she holds her arm. I don't suppose it's about wedding invites. Puffy laughs, tips her tricorn hat off her head. Phil unclaps his mask, wings curling up his back. As much as I'm looking forward to Quackity's wedding, no, this doesn't involve them. She makes her way over to him, cocking a hip to rest against the railing. Although I am intrigued by the missing fiancé. Phil hums. We're looking into it, but nothing comes up. Whoever they were dating and subsequently proposed to seemed to be a ghost. She eyed him meaningfully. There seems to be a lot of those. His wings twitch. And that means? Theseus, she says calmly, ignoring the way both Techno and him tense at the name. He's a tricky one, isn't he? What do you mean? Techno asked, voice hard. You're not the only ones with a good intel, she replies hauntedly. I know you made a meeting with him, and up till yesterday, none of us hero committee had even seen him. What happened yesterday? Phil asked, preparing for the worst. If Theseus killed the hero, there's no way for Phil to try damage control. Not even Quackity could defend that in court. He stabbed Puffy in the shoulders with a poisonous dart, Trigger says, smoke puffing from his mask. Phil freezes, blinks. He was right. Theseus is dangerous. Sam, Puffy warns, then runs a hand over her face. Look, that's not the problem. Not the problem. He stabbed you with a paralytic, Sam snaps, stepping closer. Phil darts a quick glance to Techno. Well, this isn't going to plan. No, she hisses. It's not. The problem is, you said he was Russian. Phil snaps his head around, feathers flaring up in defense. He is. She raises her eyebrows. When he spoke to me, he was American. Phil freezes, Techno's hand tightened on his sword. What? Phil says, slowly, by buffering as his wings twitch in a panic. What do you mean he's American? He sounded like he was born and raised in New York, she says, honest and straightforward. If you don't believe me, you can read the reports of the 48 victims he saved from a human trafficking ring. Phil looks over at Techno. They both share the same thought. Rambo was right. Theseus is using accents to disguise himself. It's smart, even if it's a little unnecessary considering he wears a mask. It appears Phil keeps underestimating this man. Human trafficking? He finds himself asking instead. She nods. A shipment at a bad science port. He called the police from one of the traffickers' phone after killing them all, single shot to the forehead or chest. Then waited until the police showed up before walking away. He sensed me before I even got there, called out to me. He then threw a poisoned dart at you, Sam mutters, and she sighs. Yes, that, but he moved my body to hide me and told me it would only be 10 minutes. That speed, that aim, he could have easily killed me. She sends Sam a firm look. He didn't. Just because he didn't want to hurt you doesn't make him a good person, Puffy, Sam snaps. No, but it makes him interesting. Puffy looks at Phil. There's something else. Phil steels himself. Yes, my powers didn't work. Phil tense as Sam hisses, smoke pouring out from his mask. You never mentioned that. It didn't seem relevant, she replies nonchalantly. Didn't seem? Oh my god. Sam turns away, stalks over to the railing, and drops his head into the cold metal. Puffy reaches over to pat his back. Does any of this ring a bell to you? She asked, and Phil nods. When I encountered him, he was Russian, and he only attacked when backed into a corner. I haven't tried my abilities on him, for obvious reasons. But if you can't, Phil trails off, looks to Techno. His son turns away, hands slip into his pocket to pull out his phone, quick to type out what Phil hopes is a message of worry and concern. It's late morning, so it's unlikely that any of his boys will be hurt, but Wilbur is with Hobo and Rampu, off on a meeting with Nicky to discuss business. You can't have them be hurt. None of this man can resist even Puffy's power level. There's a reason she's the #1 hero. There's a reason you didn't tell the committee, he says, and she nods. If I tell them, he'll be hunted with a shot to kill order. She looks out at the pool, at the artificial landscape. I have a feeling, if push comes to shove, he can be very dangerous if he feels threatened. So why come to me? She gives him an exasperated stare. Phil, you literally adopted 2 of the most powerful kids in the world simply because the government wanted to hide them away. You defied everyone, and look, you're not dead, and neither is half the world. Hey, Techno grumbles, looking up from his phone. Wilbur tried multiple times to take over the world. I was his willing accomplice. It was a lack of trying. Mate, Will compelling half the fucking UK's military isn't something to boast about, Phil says with a laugh, and Techno points at him. We took over Spain. Briefly, Phil shouts. Still not something to boast about. Puffy throws her head back and laughs, Sam still resting his head on the metal behind her. That's what I mean. If anyone can talk someone dangerous down, it's you. Right now, he's just a vigilante, but the committee has already asking information about him, wanting to sway him. Phil suddenly understands. I'm not competing with you over some random man. She narrows her eyes. Come on, Phil. You see the potential. I bet you want him as much as I do. With that aim, that fearlessness. He's perfect on the streets. He's already working his way through the criminals. By killing them, Sam mutters, darkly. Let's not forget that part, considering you're heroes here, Puffy. Sam, Toba could commit a genocide and you'll still be fighting in his corner, Puffy says, and he rolls his eyes. Toba would never. He has nuclear codes, Techno interrupts. He has access to actual nuclear weaponry. Sam lifts his head, pauses. Okay, so maybe I can excuse your intrigue for Theseus. Puffy scoffs. Techno snorts. Phil smiles. I'll try to recruit him, he says, but it might take some time. He doesn't seem to be the trusting type. I inform most of the heroes not to involve themselves. Be careful, she responds. The minute something changes, Phil warns, and she waves him off. I'll inform you. I don't want him dead. Phil reaches his hand out, and she takes it and shakes it. Even if they're on the opposite side, they'll always be friends. A hero and a villain, two of the most powerful people on the planet. There's not a day that doesn't go by that he doesn't have resources searching for her missing son. He knows that on her desk back home, beside a photo of Foolish and Dristra, one is one of her second oldest in her arms. He still remembers calling to congratulate her, only for her to plead for his help. While unconscious, her son was taken, never to be seen again. All they know is a power cut happened, and that a particular nurse on the security footage seen with the baby did not work for the hospital. He promised he would find him, but Phil isn't psychic. He deals with death, and nothing but the boy had ever been found. Look after yourself, Phil, she says, and slips her hat back atop her curls. Technoblade, please stop threatening the orphans. Drissa finds it funny, replies, grin to his voice. She finds a lot of things funny. That doesn't mean you should encourage her. Techno tilts his head, and Phil knows he rolls his eyes. He claps his plague mask back behind his head. Be safe, Puffy, Sam. He nods, and they both nod in response. Walking down the Eiffel Tower, they wait for a few moments before Techno and Phil share a look. I'm not letting the committee get their hands on him, Phil says, and Techno sighs. Figured as much. Techno steps to stand beside him, looking down. Are you sure you're willing to risk everything? Phil looked at him. Normally, no. Not for a talent. But it's that feeling, Tech. Something about him makes me want to pay attention, makes me to want to look after him. Bruh. Techno heaves a long sigh. I trust your bird brain. Phil laughs. Good. They turn, make their way down the small Eiffel Tower. He'll take the stairs instead of flying, just to be closer to his son. Oh, Techno says, halfway down. Will's picked up a stray. Phil furrows his brows. What? You know that kid at Nicky's? The one he described as a feral raccoon? Tobu Rambu seemed to meet a friend. Techno shrugs, unbothered. He'll be at their house. I may have a bird brain, but Tobu has a bee brain, Phil says, and Techno snorts, nearly tripping down the stairs. Phil is just glad that no one's around to see the infamous Angel of Death and the Blood God laugh and push each other like school children. Again, the instructor says in Arabic, I have no place in this world. Theseus replies in Arabic, I couldn't hear you. Again, she says in French, I have no place in this world. He replies in French. She takes a cane to his leg as he stands in point. He doesn't flinch. Again, she says in Mandarin. I have no place in this world. He replies in Mandarin. She slaps him. His head snaps to the side, tears springing to his eyes, but he does not fall. He remains steady. Again, she says in Spanish. I have no place in this world. He replies in Spanish. His legs burns. His head ache after being in the chair. He does not flinch. He doesn't even twitch. Theseus is a huntsman. He's made of the strongest metal than bone and sinew. He's unbreakable, made of marble. Good, she says in Hindi. Down and go rest. He drops from endpoint and bows his head in respect to her. He sits beside his classmates, untying his point shoes, blood dripping from his ruined toenails onto the wood. The instructor surveys the students. In Russian, she commands, "Next." Taboo's and Rambu's house, in Tommy's humble opinion, is very nice. Large windows and larger arrays of plants and flowers. It's a home he would never see in his nightly rounds. However, it does remind him of one he would sometimes see during missions. Next to their 3 beds, Tubbo points out Wilbur's house. It's larger, but in design the same. Tommy spots a handful of security cameras. Even in this gated community, it seemed their family is overly cautious. Absent-mindedly, Tommy tries to plot ways in as Wilbur checks his phone and hums at what he reads. Tommy doesn't even bother trying to look. He could hack the feed, but thought it could alert them. He could scale the building around the back and enter through one of the skylights. Or he could do what he's doing now and be invited in. It was always easier when he was invited in. Less messy. Wilbur follows him in as Tubbo leads him from the kitchen to the living room, down to a basement redesigned as a home movie theater. Tommy's on edge. The fear of being led further away from the exit makes him more and more anxious. It eases somewhat when Rambu and Tubbo shows him the giant room and then disappears to make the proposed snacks and slushies. Alone with Wilbur, Tommy places himself in a chair where he can see the door at all times. "Are you sure you're okay?" Wilbur asked, sitting a little away. Tommy shrugs. "I told you I'm tired. Nothing good night's rest won't fix." Wilbur shifts, brings his knees up to rest his elbows on, and then drops his head into his hands, studying Tommy. "It must be difficult living alone. How do you pay your bills?" Tommy thinks of his Swift bank account, a Quackety's generosity in paying Tommy more than he needed. "I'm a waiter," he says, because he was. "Stop worrying, bitch. You're gonna end up with wrinkles, and you'll make yourself even uglier." Wilbur scoffs, but it seems to tell that Tommy's heart isn't in the insult he just dished out. "I just want to know if I can help in some way." "I'm not a fucking charity case," Tommy snaps, bristling at Wilbur's words. "I can look after myself." He's been doing it for a while now. The room taught him that self-reliance is a gift. Being able to complete things alone, not needing anything, being independent, was the way of the huntsman. "I can see that," Wilbur says, placating him. "I'm simply saying you don't have to do any of this alone." Tommy raises his eyebrows. "I literally spoke to you like 3 times and now what? You're expecting me to trust you?" Wilbur grins at him. "I'm good at keeping secrets." "If you have to say that, you're not," Tommy replies, and Wilbur rolls his eyes, leaning back. Tommy knows that secrets have to be kept in his recesses of his own mind. He still remembers a boy from his class trusting in one of the others with some form of information, remembers hearing their low murmurs. Tommy never found out what it was about, but he did witness the boy get used as target practice. "For a child," Wilbur begins, and Tommy sighs. "I'm 18. "You're so cynical," Wilbur finishes. "I look at your face and see a child, but your eyes, they are so old." "Fuck you," Tommy snaps, defensive, trying to ignore that his cover might be already blown because of something he can't control. Is there a way to make his eyes less of windows into his decayed soul? "You're old." Wilbur ignored him. You remind me so much of my older brother, Techno. It's like you've seen war and came out on the other side to change. Tommy frowned at him. Inside, he's screaming. How did this happen? How is Wilbur reading him like an open book when he's supposed to be portraying a normal street kid? You're really fucking weird, Tommy says. Wilbur smiles at him. It's the theater kid in me. Tommy blinks. What's that? A theater kid? Wilbur asked. His mouth twists like he's about to mock Tommy, only to see the honesty in the boy's eyes. You never heard of Tumblr or Twitter or whatever social media you have? Tommy looks away. I don't have any social media. He's a huntsman on the run from the government. Having a social media account is like finding the tracker he ditched in the Ukraine and inserting back into his hip. Wilbur looks completely thrown. He blinks at Tommy, mouth opening and closing, before an incredulous expression filters onto his face. What kid doesn't have social media? He breathes. What phone do you have? Tommy frowns at him. He can't exactly show him the burner phone he has in case of emergency, so he settles on saying, I don't have one, big man. Wilbur stares at him like he'd grown a second head. What? He whispers. Tommy shrugs. I don't have a phone. Do I need one? Wilbur continues to stare at him, something like rage builds in Tommy, burning him. It's like the chair all over again, the electricity attacking his nerves. It's not Tommy's fault that he has these horrible thoughts. It's not his fault that he has to constantly look for exits. The way he watches everyone like they're an enemy, like they are a mark. It's not his fault that he doesn't have a phone. Stop fucking looking at me like that, he snaps, letting some of the huntsman bleed across his face, barely keeping the Russian from his voice. Wilbur jerks back, and dark satisfaction filled Tommy. He schooled his expression, looking away from him. What happened to you? Wilbur asked, quietly. And Tommy keeps his gaze away. He can't force himself to look, to show Wilbur something he shouldn't be able to see. Tommy didn't want to be here. Tommy didn't sign up for this. He went to Nikki's blindly and was led by a strange need for connection. How can Tommy ever explain this one? Hell, he doesn't even know what truly happened to him. So many memories have been deleted, have been overwritten. He's an amalgamation of self-preservation and training. He's a killer born and bred. Why does it matter? He replies, finally, voice stark. Can't change it, can I? Just have to keep living despite it. It's not like he can end his life. The training was hard, and some of the students are unbreakable types. Even if commanded to, he cannot physically kill himself. He would know. After month 3 free from the room, he placed a loaded gun to his temple and tried to pull the trigger. Look where that got him. Wilbur lets out a quiet gasp. Tommy looks up and meets his wide eyes. He opens his mouth, only for Tobo and Babu to crash through the door. Tommy startles, schooling his face as Tobo juggles 3 bowls of popcorn and Babu carries more. The scent hits Tommy first as he tunes into their conversation, surveying the bowls as if they could be poisoned, ignoring Wilbur's stare. For all he knows, they could be poisoned. Know if you like any, Tobo continues. Babu suggested we try. The chocolate-coated ones, Babu says. Yeah, the chocolate-coated ones. Tobo grins at Tommy before frowning. You're not allergic to any, are you? Tommy shakes his head. He remembers the first one to fall in the class of 28, and then being swapped out for another boy, and it was all because of a peanut allergy. Not only that, the room used poison in their food regularly. They learned to fight intoxicated, learned to handle high doses of most drugs and alcohol and poisons. Good, Tubba grins and then spins his heels wings fluttering as he seems to fly with every step. Slushies! What flavor? We have them all, Rebby adds. Tommy makes eye contact with Wilbur. What would you have? Wilbur swallows but doesn't break eye contact. Bubblegum. Tommy smiles, allowing Wilbur to see the falsity of it, of the tiredness of his eyes. Bubblegum it is, Tubbs. As Tubbo disappears out of the room, Rabbit turns to Tommy, settling beside him, mask still covering his face. You don't have to watch Drake and Josh if you don't want to. I'm sure we can watch some film instead. I don't think it's going to like Cinderella or Snow White, Boo, Wilbur mutters, and Tommy freezes. Yeah, he says, voice weak. He clears his throat and tries again. Yeah, I'd rather not watch them. Oh? Rampy asked, prompting him to explain further. It's boring, ain't it? He says, all he can say. He'd rather not discuss sitting in that room, projectors showing the old Disney returns, mouthing along until the Russian accent faded into an American one. Tubbo thankfully appeared, glass in hand. Tommy turns to the screen before him, trying to calm down his racing heart. End of chapter.